I saw the little thing in the corner.
And we're live.
And we are live. All right. So everybody, welcome to Ask Me About My Wood. And you are joined by myself, Chris from Cowdog Craftworks. We have PJ from the Evolution of Tables,
So
as
nervous
well
right now.
as Arturo, the Chop Master.
First time
And
doing this.
It is our
Yes.
first time. Actually, it's our fifth time now.
It's number 5, fellas. Number 5.
Number 5. 5
That's
weeks
the
strong.
5
Yeah.
weeks strong, 5 listeners strong. Like
Exactly. You know, it's the best part about the show is that we can say kind of whatever we want because there's only like 4 to 5 people listening at any given.
Yeah, no. Right now we
Ever.
have nobody. So I can get my wife. Maria, get watch our YouTube, please. We need people.
Oh my god.
There are a couple people that listen to us after the fact because I do get,
Sure.
DMs.
You know
but,
what? Our
know.
first. I'm going to tell you something right now. Our podcast, because it tracks it. It might be a little delayed, but our first podcast has 68 plays.
And that's mostly from me and PJ listening to ourselves over and over again.
You're like overcritical about the sounds of our voices.
Second one has 30.
Oh man.
The third one has 51.
Ooh.
And check this out. Our fourth one that I posted it on Thursday, because life.
Yeah, late. Yeah.
33 already.
Wow.
That's
so
cool.
That's a statistical spike. It doesn't look like anything significant, but since that one's been out for 3 days and it already has half the views of some that have been out for a month.
Yeah.
It
really does. It has more than half of the views. Yeah, it has half the views of one that's been a month. Yeah.
It could be the guest, or it could be, the fact that I did tell a lot of people just to skip to episode 3. So, I was like, we don't really know what we're doing for 1 and 2, so just fucking skip to 3. And
you know what? But I got a lot of response that 1 and 2 are pretty good.
Yeah.
Like some of the parents at my kid's school listen to it.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, we gotta be careful then, man. Oh my god.
Yeah, and then
that's what makes you unleash the beast.
Yeah, there we go. And then they're like, "Oh no, 1 and 2 is pretty good." Like,
well, I have to be careful. John is actually technically a parent of a student of mine, so I got to be careful too, man.
Yeah. It's a little rough.
You could just be like, listen, she didn't dress out. Fail.
Yeah.
Fail.
I mean, I told him and her, like, listen, you got a free pass for the whole year. Like, I don't care. Like you're John's kid. Like, if you want to work out, that's great. But if not, I'm not going to fail you. So do whatever you want. It's life.
Yeah, but you do have to, bring like angle grinders and polishing compounds
and bang
on.
Yeah, exactly. Bring me a couple bangs a week, and you got an A, no problem.
Yeah, we're specifically talking about the energy drink, guys. Yeah. Don't get weird.
Well, yeah, dude, come on. All these kids don't even call it banging anymore. They know what I'm talking about when I say bang.
Yeah,
the terminology changes weekly. Actually, with these kids, the terminology is just like
it's like a rodeo.
Yeah. Keeps me fresh.
Yeah. Hey, babe, you want to go back in Pine Tree? It's like, what? Like,
what? It's like, you want to go fell timber? What? Like, they have no idea what that means.
Oh, man. All right, guys. So what y'all working on? What it do,
fam? Go ahead, Arturo.
This week's just been crazy hectic with kids' school. They're finishing up school, so I had to deal with that. And then we're knocking out these tables. Like, I'm going to stain them and varnish them today. So you see pictures of that today. The walnut TV console from last week got they got its legs. Monday or Tuesday.
Little hairpins?
Yeah, they got hairpins.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to follow through with the hairpins on multiple pieces.
Yeah, like I said, she wanted it, so I was like, cool. And then like you said right now, they matched the desk that she had. So it was pretty cool. So that's not bad. So I'm working on those tables. Got to knock those out.
Did the epoxy job that you were doing? Remember, you wanted to come flatten some stuff. Like you got that done.
Oh yeah. So that's part of those tabletops.
Okay.
So I was going to flatten them because they had. You remember how they had that poplar had so much tension in it?
Yes.
Well, here too. So gluing them up, they're like skewing. They were lifting a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Well, as I was going, because they're really bad.
Yeah.
And then so that I just took it to the CNC and like in an hour it's just
that probably means that tree was like a leaner. Right. It had it was growing sideways or whatever, maybe like where it was positioned in the forest, it had to like lean one direction to get sunlight, so it grew crooked, you know. So it was competing for light that way. But you know, it's pretty, I guess, like poplar. I've never really had an experience with poplar because it's such kind of like an easygoing, soft, easily workable wood. Never really seen tension in poplar, but
but you saw that, man. That
in a like, because you brought over like a little piece, 8/4 by 6, 8/4 by 8, something like that.
It was like an 8. Well, it was 8/4 by 10, and then I cut it down. So it was like 8/4 by 8.
And we were cutting strips like basically 3/4 by 2.
Yeah.
And there was a cup in a basically a 1x2. It had a cup in it. And that was crazy, man. I've never seen that. Never seen it before in my life.
In my life.
The piss oak had so much tension in it.
Yeah.
But I mean, that had also, I mean, that's dunnage. So that's not stuff that's supposed to really be used for furniture making.
Yeah.
But I mean, just to give you some perspective on how much tension it had, like as I was making the last pass with the track saw, it started pinching up and it literally threw the breaker on the power strip. So
those are 50 amps, bro. You gotta put a 20 amp.
Yeah.
Just go to balls.
15, right?
Yeah.
Chris
you gotta put a 20.
Chris actually has 3 amp breakers at his.
That's
why
20 conversion thing. Yes, he knows, man.
But I mean, 15. Really, the problem was solved with the wedges, which I used a Home Depot pencil. That's how I did it on the second try.
There you go, man. There you go.
You know, went back and jammed a little Home Depot pencil on the gap and worked like a charm. So
that's another reason I like to leave a bunch of scraps on the floor. You know, I'll like cut 5 or 6 like little wedges and stuff and throw them out in the vicinity of the sawmill, you know, because if I try and keep them in my back pocket or something like that while I'm sawing, I'm going to forget that they're there.
And lose them.
And lose them. Like if they're on the floor around the log, I'll be pushing through. I'm like, oh, hey, there's a wedge. Let me stick it in, you know, it's convenient.
Convenience. Peach, what are you working on, man?
Good question. Very good question. This week was pretty busy. I got a mahogany slab bar top. I'll probably post it later today. The client wanted it to be unfinished, which is awesome. You know, like that Chris said yesterday. He's like, oh, so your client wanted to do basically the hardest part of building furniture? Yes, go ahead. Like, that's fine. He wanted to do like just a tabletop epoxy over a piece of mahogany. And so I took my time. I made that fake broken edge on both sides. It was about, I want to say like a 9-foot piece. And whatever, it was a beautiful piece of mahogany from a slab that was unusable for something else. So I cut out a section of it and got that delivered. That was pretty satisfying. Like two-day project, cut the slab, flatten it, sand it, done, get it out, you know?
Yeah, those are always fun.
Yeah. And David's thing was picked up. That was last week. And there's a bunch of other stuff. I can't even think about it right now because I'm so excited about this podcast.
So excited. Chris, what you got? What do you got, Chris? What you got this week, man?
Oh, man. So I'm not a ton of actual physical woodwork, to be honest. But what I will say is that a lot of negotiating and talking and interfacing with clients. So that was a big thing. Our commercial client is actually the warehouse job that we've been working on. They're actually moving into the warehouse like as we speak. Like they're like making it happen. So the timeline of things is kind of shifting a little bit. So they wanted us to do, and I mean, the best way to describe it is like they want the walls at the reception area and in this other zone to sort of look like the inside of a shipping container. So we're doing these faux 2x4s along the walls, and it was trying to figure out how they wanted it to look, trying to manage the space. And, you know, I actually got to go to the space, take some measurements, and look at some things, look at some logistics. So there was that. And then we've also, PJ's been on the emails, but I've primarily been the one talking to an interior designer about reproducing some furniture for a furniture line. And it's actually the same people that we had talked about, that schoolgirl desk, the little end table that opens up. They've got a couple more things that they want us to do on a more like, I guess, personal basis. So
I'm going to call that the Britney Spears desk.
So there was that. And then what else? Let's see. Friday. Oh, they announced the winners of the Builders Challenge on Friday. And
They what?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's some pretty cool pieces.
Yeah. So they did that. Yeah. Honestly, like I was not super impressed with the winners, but if you go through the hashtag, there's some really cool stuff.
Yeah, I noticed that, but I guess it was a little like they're picking the winner. I was reading like amateur, best amateur, and then like best for this and best for that. Like it was something particular, not overall.
Yeah, it's a really cool challenge, but what I will say is,
Did you get it? I'm looking right now. Like I totally blanked on the fact that it was over. Like, did you get recognized at all? Like, what the hell?
Yeah, so they actually reposted my picture, the one with the dog with Leo, on their site. Like, I got a lot of really good engagement out of this, and that's really, the whole point of doing these community challenges anyway is to, really drum up engagement, drum up your following. I mean, that definitely happened, for sure. Like, I want to say actually that they reposted like probably a good 3 posts of mine actually during the time of the challenge.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
hell yeah.
That was cool.
I was gonna mess with you. I told my wife, I'm gonna get the hairpin legs and put it on that walnut TV console, and then Photoshop your dog. And it's like, you're such a dick. You're so mean.
That's so funny.
Yeah, put a dog on something. It'll win every contest, man.
Well, when we were at, and PJ didn't do this class, but when we were at Workbench Con, I took the YouTube 101 class that was hosted by Chris from Four Eyes Furniture and Mike from Modern Builds. And it was really funny because one of the things that they talk about there is doing your YouTube thumbnail and like how important that is. Like making sure that your thumbnail's like eye-catching. There's actually one of the funny things that they had said was that when you edit a YouTube thumbnail, that you want it to almost be, you don't edit a YouTube thumbnail in the same way that you would edit like a normal photograph for Instagram or a normal photograph that you're planning on like putting in print, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason being is that like you want colors to pop, you want your whites to be really white, you want your darks to be really dark. So that way, when you're seeing this thing on a screen and it's literally, an inch and a half wide, like it catches you, So
a little bit more vivid.
Yeah. So one of the things that they brought out was like, they're like, for some reason they're like dogs in YouTube videos like fucking kill, like they crush, like in the thumbnail, like they're like that's like some anomaly, and they're like it works. So they're like, if you have a dog available, like go grab your dog,
put the dog on the furniture.
And it was like super random, like because it's actually Max's dog, the photographer. So I'm there and we're like, he says something about Leo. He's like, we could probably get Leo in the picture. And I was like, why don't we just put him on the fucking thing? Like, see that game. He's like, he's going to scratch it. I'm like, no, dude, it's plate steel. Like, you're fine. Like, just put him on top. So, anyway, that happened. And then I got like really balls deep in editing. So yesterday I edited video for about 3 to 4 hours and my brain is putty, but,
nice.
Most of the videos pretty much edited. Like my process is I do like multiple rounds kind of like watching the video and just trying to trim up processes. Cause the first time you watch it, you're sort of married to your footage, I think. Cause you're like, like that was really cool. And you're like being very reminiscent about stuff. You're like, like that was neat. And like, but you don't want
to look at the bigger picture.
Like who wants to see somebody cutting the same cut, a million times in a row exactly the same way? Like it gets a little boring. Like one of the things I did actually was, it was on the piss oak. Like I was taking multiple passes with the track saw to try to just break it down, right? Because it was a little bit too big for the table saw. And so, I had it all, and even though it was sped up and even though it was like jump cut it and, cut out like with all the nonsense as I'm watching, I'm like, this is just too long, like that bit is 30 seconds of nonsense, really. So I just clipped it down to, 10, 12 seconds and, boom, next process.
Next step. Nice.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes.
Is there any ETA on
on the channel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you've, not to, not in an insulting way, but I'm saying like, I feel like you've been saying like, yes, I'm dropping, doing a YouTube channel. I'm like, dude, I want to watch your stuff, like put it out. Come on, you know?
just go to his house. I mean, you're down.
That's true.
And PJ's actually, it's funny that he says that because like I have like sent him like the unlisted links, but yeah, like the actual channel's not live. But I am expecting.
Oh well, shit! I guess I gotta click on that link.
Oh my god, damn it!
Okay.
Oh,
dude, Dusko watches all of them. I sent him to the PJ and Dusko chat, and like, yeah, like Dusko watches all of them. He's like super psyched, and PJ just pretends they don't exist. Thanks, but
I guess I'm. Well, shit! I feel stupid now. Like,
you're such a good friend.
But
whatever.
Anyway, long story short, I'm hoping to have a full channel launch by probably like July. I think July is reasonable because I want to get one more video down. So,
Chris, question: are you gonna like post them all at once, or you just gonna go?
No, I'm gonna drop a chunk. So I'm gonna drop, a loaf of 3 of them, maybe 4. I haven't quite decided, but I'm gonna drop multiple at once. And then I'm gonna release another one in like 2 or 3 weeks. And
yeah, because you can schedule them on YouTube.
Yeah, you can schedule them, and I don't think I have enough right now to do that necessarily. But I mean, that is kind of the idea. Is like from everybody I've talked to, and sort of the brain trust, it's like get a little library so that way people have content to go to, because you can have a single banger video and like people are super into it, but they might not stick around for your channel if you're
they're not going to subscribe.
Yeah, if it's your only video, and actually, well, the problem if it's your only video is that then you can't use the end card, you can't use the links to direct them back into your channel. So that was something. I'm going to draw an analogy to something that PJ and I heard when we were there about maximizing revenue streams with April Wilkerson. And one of the things she was talking about was sort of keeping people in this weird loop between your YouTube channel and your website. So that way you were constantly generating AdSense dollars like the entire time. And she's like, like if as soon as you go to the YouTube channel, it's like, all right, links in the description, like to the website that has, plans and the article. And then you go over there and then it's got like an embedded link to the YouTube channel, and you're just constantly like flipping back and forth. So you're staying on platform, right? Like on their platform, so to speak. So, I mean, with a YouTube channel, I think that's one of the things that you want people to do is you want them to, even if they're not super interested in your other stuff, you want them to still give it a shot. You want them to still try to watch it. So
yeah, click the links.
Yeah. So,
where did Arturo's left us? Oh, okay.
Pants. They brought me shorts. It's quite.
You really weren't wearing pants, dude?
Yeah, I wasn't wearing shorts. I just Pete, man, you've been up since like 3 texting me.
I know, dude. But still, like,
I need the link.
Yeah, send the link. Hey, come on, man.
I mean, I'll be honest. I'm not wearing pants, but I'm wearing a.
You're wearing a robe.
Oh, there's an AC vent like right on top of my head,
dude. But how? Like, you got out of bed and sat down, bare-assed in a chair.
No, I have underwear on, man.
Still, man, that's weird.
I need shorts. It's cold in my house.
Oh my god!
We were talking before, like about different underwears, different underwear phases that we all go through.
Yeah, but that's like for the next podcast.
Okay, my bad. We won't bring it up yet.
Yeah. And actually, really quick before we start getting into everybody's topics, I do want to address a couple user questions. So one of them was JT from DFM Toolworks, and I'll also preface this. The questions I got have literally nothing to do with the podcast, nor are they really educational in woodworking, but these are our people, so we have to address it. And also, JT hooked up PJ pretty fat from what I understand.
Yeah. He's not calling me fat, but he did donate or is going to donate a class set of card scrapers with our school.
Awesome, man. I gotta go over there to your house to check them out.
No, I don't want you to come here ever again.
I know. I literally just show up.
I'm kidding, man. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding, dude. You're welcome whenever.
The one person that's in our chat right now on YouTube Live is Dusky.
Oh, what's up, man?
There's that guy. Push stick with 2 C's.
I love every bit of it.
With make sure Leo's there. So one of us has to have Leo like in our hands.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't have Leo. I do have Harper, who is also a Yorkie, but she's significantly fatter. So there's that. All right. So JT DFM Toolworks asks, "What is the airspeed of an unladen swallow?" And I think PJ had the answer for that.
It's actually 30 feet per second. It's roughly the same speed as the gravitational pull, like an unimpeded gravitational force.
Everybody, he is a PE teacher.
He also did AP biology though, so I don't know if that's a
I did
crossover. or
AP
not.
environmental science. Yeah,
Yeah.
What is that? That's a crossover.
it is a crossover. Hey, listen, the amount of subjects within AP environmental science, they call it in the definition. It's called an interdisciplinary subject. Involving math and geography and science and history, all that kind of stuff, politics, even. It's cool.
And the other, well, I got a couple more. One of them was from Alicia from Pneumatic Addict, which really she was just commenting on the dirt stash that was in that picture that I had on there. Because there was the background picture for the sticker was me in my shop, and I had a little cholo stash that I was rocking.
Oh, so nice. A Sanchez?
Yes. Yeah. So she was asking me like how long it took me to grow that. And to be quite honest, like as you can see, do not grow facial hair at lightning speed. So approximately 3 weeks.
Okay.
Is the answer for that.
Well, that's not terrible. That's not
And let's see. Andrew from Hesitant Handyman wanted a breakdown of the movie Leprechaun for those of us who haven't seen it.
Oh my God.
And yeah, let me also give people some context on this because there is a little bit of context. So Andrew, cool guy. We also met him at Workbench Con.
Yes.
And Andrew actually, I don't know, like he's always doing the stickers. He's very community engaged. And one of the things that he was talking about was like this maker shirt summon. Like, so who would he like summon using like their actual like t-shirt, right? Like, if you've given him a t-shirt and he like puts it on, like, would you like appear and like, why, kind of thing. And I made a joke to him. I was like, yeah, I was like, nobody should maker shirt summon me because I'm like the leprechaun from the movie The Leprechaun. And, so just for everybody. And actually, this is funny. I just pulled up the Leprechaun on Wikipedia. It is Jennifer Aniston's film debut.
Oh, wow.
Who thunk it? Yeah. 1993. American comedy and horror film. Yeah.
What a time to be alive, man. The early to mid 90s.
Yeah.
God, Jurassic Park,
Basically, the plot is that there's a vengeful leprechaun who believes the family has stolen his pot of gold, and he hunts them, and they attempt to locate his gold to vanquish
Isn't that
him.
the Lucky Charms commercial?
Yes. I mean, really, yes, kind of, yeah. It's just a more evil version of that.
Yes, because there's death involved.
Yeah.
I don't think children's cereal should involve death and destruction.
No. This is the best part, though. Like, as I'm reading this Wikipedia article, it says reviews on release were negative and focused on the film's acting, humor, and directing, all of which were criticized. This feels like our podcast. And it has also been called Aniston's worst film.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
First and worst, man. That's all right. Yeah. Get it out of the way.
And also followed by 6 sequels and a remake.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so they went ham.
No doesn't mean no.
Yeah.
Suck doesn't you suck at it. No. Yep. I don't
well,
know.
It also appears to be, it says it's often broadcast on St. Patrick's Day. And so this sort of leads me into green shirts, which, like, I don't know, like people, I don't know if you have these, but I have like a specific St. Patrick's Day shirt that like I only wear on St. Patrick's Day. So this movie and that shirt feel the same way.
I wear green underwear. That gives me the excuse to show people my underwear when they say, you're not wearing green. And then I just like pull my pants down.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Got you 2 times.
Well, but I will also add that Brian from Ronan Witch did actually have a actual, like, I don't know, topic or question, but like, he wanted to sort of know some either like shop hacks or like some good, like your best shop hack or your best product hack, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I know for me, and this isn't even one that I came up with, it's my band clamps, using the spring clamps.
That's a good one. Who was that? Bike City?
No, that was John Ayala Woodworks.
Okay.
Who hooked me up with that one.
I think of Bike City because
it's a bicycle,
the tire tube. Yeah.
Yeah. So for those who don't know really what it is, it's a spring clamp, and then you take a bike inner tube and you cut out a little section of it, and you fit the ends over the end of your spring clamp, and bam.
You go to Rockler and buy them.
Well, that's
on sale.
Let me tell you how much cheaper it is to make them. It's like silly. Like I have probably, if I had the same amount of band clamps that were the Rockler version, I'd probably have like $200 worth of band clamps. But,
At least.
and,
Like 3.
yeah, like I probably have, I think out of this set,
You made
and
like
actually,
10 of them, right? Didn't you make 10 or 15 of them?
yeah, like 15, something like that. I have a full
Yeah.
string that I
Over
like
there.
have. So yeah. And actually I converted all of my spring clamps to that. Cause I mean, really for a spring clamp, I don't need like a standard, like if I'm going to make a band clamp, I might as well just have them all be band clamps, really.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't see the need for
Yeah,
one
there's
over
no-
the other.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah,
So that's
'cause
mine.
you do that as a regular clamp anyway, so not a problem. I think shop hack for me will be double-sided tape.
Yeah, to stick down the CNC.
Yeah.
You ever use that speed tape from
No.
FastCap?
No.
FastCap speed tape is awesome. FastCap speed tape is like they actually use it for edge banding. That's how strong it is.
Oh wow.
Like you could put it comes in a 3/4 inch wide or like a 32nd less than 3/4, like the thickness of plywood. So you could put it on the edge and then put your edge banding. It's really, really strong stuff. So if you do need, but it's also removable. Like put a paint scraper underneath, pop it up, like for the CNC.
Yeah.
I think that would be. I've got a roll of it. It'll let you a trial run. I'll give you some of it. Trial piece.
Yeah,
See if
use
you like it.
that or the CA glue with painter's tape.
That's a good hack.
That's awesome.
That's a really good hack. Yep.
I love that one. That's one of my favorites. Except like I had that problem the other day that I ran out of the activator. I have a ton of glue, no activator.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, you just have to wait a little bit longer, man. That's all.
Yeah, don't you just have to wait like 25 seconds more
instead of 5?
No, because you gotta remember it has to fully cure, so the CNC doesn't like yank it.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's a lot longer. I've waited like a minute, and the CNC does its first pass, and yoink! I'm like,
oh,
need that activator.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, it has to fully.
I actually used that, Chris, the leftover stuff from the job that's there. I was putting that fake live edge on the end of that mahogany slab yesterday, and came, end piece, big chip, like 6-inch long wedge, just came flying off the end because I was being kind of rough with it, obviously, because it's art. You got to be rough with your art. And I did that. I did the wood glue and the CA glue, spray a little bit on there, literally like on contact, man. That stuff is incredible.
Yeah. Literally, like you got to make sure you're lined.
Yeah, because it's not moving. You gotta break it again.
I line it up, pencil mark it, and then I remove it, put it, and like make sure it lines up perfect, or else it's like gone.
It was interesting with the veneer when we did that delivery. We had those little peel up spots and all that because you could literally like put it under between the veneer and the piece, like set it down and then spray the activator from the side, and it would still like penetrate through.
It would get all the way
cause
through.
it to cure. Yeah.
There's a bow guy by me. He does it. He has some tricks with that activator, and he goes, "Man, no, just put it together, and then you spray like in between the gap, that little gap, just a little bit, and it gets like perfectly cured."
Yeah, it's a chain reaction. Like if the activator touches one side, like the whole stuff crystallizes right away.
Yeah, and
or if it's enough to just hold the outside part that did come into contact with the activator, then it holds it in place while the rest of it dries, I guess.
Right.
But
and I showed you that last week with the wood glue and the CA.
That's what I did with this big chunk that flew out of the mahogany slab. It was good, man. It freaking held right away, and I'm talking about an hour before delivery. This happened.
Oh my God!
Again, because it's an unfinished piece. Like I didn't, usually if it's a finished piece, you're not finishing the day of delivery. You do it a day or 2 days before, so let it cure.
Unless you're
I'm like ready to go. Yeah, Chris, this unfinished delivery. Like ready to go deliver, and I'm like, oh, let me just change this real quick, and then wonk, big chip comes flying off. I'm like, oh no, and then, oh wait, never mind. There's a solution. Okay,
got some CA glue.
Yep,
that's cool, man.
I don't really have any shop. I mean, I guess I do. I think I am one. I'm just one big hack altogether. I'm a hack. I can't really think of one specific thing that I use a tool for that it's not really meant to be used for, but I use it anyway. I don't know, like use a screwdriver as a hammer. That's a hack. There you go. Enjoy that. Speaking of, okay. Okay. I'm trying to chisel stuff, right? Imagine this. Chris, you're on board with this. we're trying to chisel stuff, and I don't have a proper joiner's mallet. I have that gigantic African mahogany Thor hammer, and I don't want to use that because your forearm gets a little bit tired after about 6 seconds of using it.
The little short handle.
Yeah. So I had a mini sledge, like a 2-pound sledgehammer, which again is still pretty heavy, but holding that the head of the hammer in my hand and chiseling was like kind of a discovery, and Chris and I are probably all three of us to get it into production are going to make these little like handheld joiner's mallets, not a traditional mallet with a handle, but something that you actually hold in your hand to tap the top of the chisel.
We can do that.
Yeah, we could do that.
And we can put like a hand grip. Like
exactly, almost like like a piece of clay that you would squeeze in your hand. Like that's what the thing would look like with a flat striking surface, and just tap the back of the chisel. Chris, like you told me the other day, right, Chris? You
I'm going to your house after this.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I was using.
I knew he'd come over again.
I was using my monster. I mean, I have a not equally as big, but pretty freaking big mallet, and it's Australian pine. And I mean, just to give some people some perspective on how like solid Australian pine is, you see these guys like Chris Cunningham or Andrew Jews from Jews Woodworks, and they're putting all the little beads like in the head to weight it. Yeah. Like with the Aussie pine, no need for that. Like I didn't have to do any of that. Like literally, it's just 2 blocks of Aussie pine glued together, and I drill the hole straight through it. And it is super weighty. But what I was getting at though is that like, so as I was chiseling, I naturally just went to holding the hammerhead at one point. Like instead of holding the handle, and this was completely subconscious. Like I was just tap, 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 tap. And then next thing I know, I like looked down and I had the handle of the mallet like through my fingers, and I was gripping. Yeah. So actually, funny enough,
I think
I have.
Oh, he's got it right there. All right,
this is different. This is from Luke Cyclo Crosscutter. This is my Mjolnir, the Thor hammer that he made me.
Oh, that's right.
But just to give people who are actually watching this some perspective, I was holding it like that, and then just pop, 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 tapping away.
Hey, I think we have a product, guys.
Yeah, he subconsciously thinks about me. I know it.
Ask
all
me
the time.
First product.
There we go.
Oh, we're gonna make that. It's gonna be sick.
Yeah. Shout out to Luke from Cyclo Crosscutter. This thing is freaking rad. BT dubs. I've been wanting to make a shelf just to display it on, and I haven't. It sits on my dining table. I've used it twice.
That's funny. All right, man. So we're gonna change it up this week a little bit. So we decided to go, like Chris was saying, change it up a little bit. People know what we specialize in, and we're always picking topics that we specialize in. So I think we're going to change it up a little bit to pick one topic each, and we're just going to discuss it.
Mm-hmm.
Some general.
Nobody's going to get verklempt.
No,
I
don't know what. It means,
but, really?
That's an old SNL sketch, man. Talk amongst yourselves. So I in the beginnings of my YouTube experience, not that I have a YouTube. I mean, I have a YouTube channel, but not that whatever. In the beginnings of my watching YouTube to learn about woodworking,
you have catchy thumbnails. It's just like you and your face, like.
Yeah, I'm taking Brian's advice, man.
I was about to say, as we established last week, like PJ's face in and of itself is a brand. So.
Well, thanks, guys. Thanks very much. Yeah, that's the. Remember, it's the mirror.
What's funny is that David designed that really, really cool logo for you, but really all he should have done was just like freaking like traced your face in Adobe Illustrator and just called it a day. Like,
oh, that would be awesome. And different colors.
I'd probably look weird on a branding iron, though.
No,
you
got it.
Well, because all the excess burn could be like facial hair.
There you go.
Like all right. So anyway, a slightly younger PJ is out there. Watching YouTube, channels, all your generic channels that probably any one of you that's listening right now is also a fan of, because, let's face it, back in the day, let's say 5, 6, 8 years ago, there was a lot less woodworkers out there like producing content. So, your wood whisperers, your your woodworking from your mortals, your Izzy Swans, is, you know, people like that had channels a long time ago. Matt Cremona, they would kind of go over like the basic woodworking stuff, and a common topic, like almost like a trend for a couple months, like everybody would do the same type of video, and then that's when it sprung out into more of the DIY type stuff. You know, your 5 basic tools that everyone should own. 5 basic tools that you should have in your shop. And I took it literally. I took the advice, and I'm like, oh, you know, you should have a miter saw. You should have a drill driver combo. You should have, you know, a framing square. You should have this and that, like normal tools that probably all of us already have, you know. Right. And I want to provide maybe a different perspective on that whole movement, like the people that will tell you like what to have. And I want to say that like it all depends on what you want to do, you know, because there are plenty of small shops that are going to specialize in stuff. Can you imagine
your little
yeah, like JT, the guy that does the Kumiko things, right? Or is that
Johnny Charm?
Johnny. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, those are his initials. Okay.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't think he needs a miter saw. I don't think he needs a framing square. You know what I mean? Like, I see what he posts all the time. He's doing really specific stuff, and he's really good at it. And he doesn't need to follow that advice. And the more I pay attention to more people that are really specific, even people within our own group that are really good at something that's theirs, that's their own baby, that they're good at. They don't need to follow that model at all, man. So if everybody made a YouTube video about the 5 basic tools that they need, like here's my 5 basic tools, would be a crane, a bobcat, a sawmill, and 2 chainsaws. Those are my 5 right there. Ooh. You know, like, but for JT, like, he can't use any of that stuff. But we're both woodworkers, and we both watch all the same content. We both are fans of all the same people, and but we're very different. So you have to be, you know, I'll reference what I said last week. You have to be true to yourself. Like, really decide what type of maker you want to be, and then that's where you base your top 5 off of. Not a lot of people will just kind of get enthusiastic about woodworking, and then, oh my God, this guy on the internet said I need this, so I'm going to go and buy this. You know, that's just an advertisement, man. They got you.
Yeah,
that's all that is. You got to be.
But no, like me, for example, I rather have CNC bed, like all the different CNC beds that I need, because like realistically, very rarely I'll do something different. I mean, I have them, but I don't have like I had a DeWalt, you know, a DeWalt miter, like the whole 12-inch sliding and all that. Yeah. And I never really used it, so I got rid of it and found a used Harbor Freight sliding 12-inch. Yeah. Like dirt cheap.
Sure.
Have that laying around, so when I gotta do something small, something quick, I have it, but never really like need it that much per se.
And it depends on how much you're gonna use a tool.
Right.
Yeah. I love to get the best of. What's that? Sorry.
That's where your investment should go. Like if you use a lot, you know, miter. If you're doing a lot of miter stuff, coffee. If you're doing a lot of miter stuff, then a good miter saw makes a difference.
Of course.
Yeah. I don't own a miter saw.
Like, yeah, Chris doesn't. There you go. And I guarantee you, if you look right now, there's 3. I could find you 3 YouTube videos that have miter saw in their top 5 of things that you need if you're going to be a woodworker.
Yeah,
I remember David Picciuto didn't have a miter saw for the longest time. You know,
because he made a bunch of table saw jigs.
Yeah, you know? And that's like where actually. So speaking of the top 5 sort of thing, one of the things I have found helpful, not from a tool perspective, but top 5 like jigs to make. You know, those kind of videos.
Oh, there you go. You know? Okay.
And that's always. I mean, you know, people talk about it all the time. Like I get messages all the time because, you know, it seems like every other week there's like some new jig I'm using, and really they're all just sort of variations on the same thing.
Yeah, you're just holding it in a different way.
Well, it's all, you know, the ones that are mounted to my fence, really. You know, they slide over the top of my fence, and I've got like, you know, the spline jig, the tenon jig, the bevel jig. They're literally all the same thing, really. Yeah. And I use the bevel jig as a sacrificial fence too sometimes. And I'm just, you know, for doing rabbits or whatever. but I get like a lot of feedback from people like, oh, that's so cool. Like, you know, and actually a lot of people want me to do a video about those jigs, but I'm kind of like, yeah, I was like, also there's like 49,000 other videos out there. They're probably better than something I could put out. So, but yeah, those jigs are awesome. Like there's so many, like, I mean, box joint jig. Like I watched that Steve Ramsey video, like, you know, 3 or 4 times, you know, before I made that one that I did for the, what's it called, for the end table. Cause I couldn't find my other one. So yeah, like, I mean, there's so many out there. I will say too, like as far as, people that are getting started in the space too, and they're trying to figure out like what tools to get. If you guys want to see a woodworker who gets really fired up about like makers and influencers and people sort of like who he feels are misguiding people in the space. There's this guy, I can't remember. I think his name's Ryan, but his handle is Scan Wood or Scan Woods. Let me have to look him up. SKAN.
Yeah, I think I've seen that before.
Yeah, he does a lot of really cool restoration. Yeah, it's Scan Woods, SKANWOODS, and like that guy will rail on any brand or company that he thinks is not putting out quality product or not standing behind their stuff. And I mean, one of his more recent, I don't want to use the word victim, but one of his more recent call outs was Total Boat, which I thought was kind of interesting. He did so he did an outdoor table, and he used their penetrating epoxy and their I guess some kind of like outdoor varnish, like a marine varnish or something that they had on a walnut table that was going outside. And it was just to sort of frame the situation. He told this client, he's like, listen, you really should not put this outside. Like, you know, like it's gorgeous walnut. Like, what are you doing? And like the guy was like, listen, I want it. So he's like, all right, customer, like I'll give you exactly what you want. So he called a bunch of companies and he was like, hey, you know, like what is the best way to finish this, you know, on an outdoor, you know, for outdoor use. And a couple companies he called, they were like, listen, like we don't have anything that's going to really guarantee that this is not going to fail. But I guess he called Total Boat and, you know, according to his rendition of this, they were like, oh yeah, like we got something, do this, use it this way, and it'll work. And after literally like 2 months of being outside, like it's graying on the edges, like it's totally failed, like as far as like the finishing process. And so he called him back and he was like, hey, you know, again, all according to his rendition, I have no idea what Total Boat's side of the story is, but, you know, he was basically like, you know, can you guys stand behind your product? And they like, according to him, tried to sell him more stuff and like was telling him that he was doing it wrong. And he's like, dude, he's like, I literally did exactly what you said. I used exactly what you wanted. I applied it precisely to the T that you told me to. And now you're saying, not only are you saying it's my fault, now you're saying that I have to buy more stuff to fix the problem sort of that you created, right? So he was pretty furious about that. But I know he rails on woodpeckers all the time about
really.
Like, yeah, he's not a fan of the woodpeckers. He says like, I think he bought a square or something and it wasn't dead ass square. And he was also having issues with, I guess, aluminum, which actually I wonder, I'm a little curious about that too. Like how well aluminum holds up over time in a shop, like as far as drops, getting banged up, bent, you know.
Well, yeah, dude, I don't think you can get away from, you know, if you drop a square, like that's just kind of like, dude, don't drop your squares, you know. That's a precision tool. Take care of it, you know.
If you're gonna drop your square, go to Harbor Freight. They sell them for $1 a day.
I will say that, like, say like those like old Stanleys and stuff, though, like those things have been, you know, 100 years. Who knows how many times those things have been freaking dropped or whatever, and they seem to hold up. I mean, granted, nobody's like football spiking these things, but like, you know, like, I mean, those old tools for whatever reason, you know, old Starretts and all that, like they seem to really.
That's true. A Starrett, but a Starrett's also way more expensive than a woodpecker's tool, you know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's debatable at this point.
They're getting up there. You're right about that, man.
Yeah, they come out with everything. Like they come out like there's a product there. They come out with it, put woodpecker, make it red and white, and it's like $1,000.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you because you're getting influenced by, if you go on your Instagram feed right now, and all the big time accounts that you follow in their pictures, they've got woodpecker's tools. You know, I'm guilty of it. I would love to have a big, you know, one of those oversized corner squares where you can clamp it and stuff like that. And they've got a lot of really good solutions for common processes and common problems that you might have. Just like fast cap, same kind of thing. But like you see it done. It's almost like if you hear it enough times, if you hear it said enough times, it becomes true. So that's all I see all the time. Like that's the gold standard. That's what I have to get. And they could just be like a regular company that's really good at marketing. And
it's similar to like Festool, for example.
There you go.
Are good, but like they don't have to necessarily be the best.
Yeah, like the reason I'll tell you right now, Chris, the reason why I haven't bought a track saw is because I'm looking at the Mayfell track saws.
I remember you told me about that. Yeah.
Yeah, like
really
the TS75 can do down to 2 7/16, 2.5, or 2 9/16. It is right. That's how thick the TS75 can cut.
It can go 2 3/4 at 90, but then I forget what it does at a miter. So
okay,
yeah.
So 2 3/4 is not bad, but
for what you do, it's different though.
Yeah, for what I do, like a lot of my tabletops would be about that, and if they're like a little bit thicker than that, I'm kind of like, now I've got to do two things. I have to make an initial cut, and then maybe like break the rest off, and then come back with a flush trim, or something like that.
Why don't you just have like a good circular saw that fits your needs, right? Like one of those Mac Daddy, like the Mafel.
He's got a beam saw. I mean,
I have a beam saw, yeah, but that thing is more for rough work.
No, get something. Get a big one of these big circular saws, like a Makita or something, like those big ones.
Yeah,
like,
I have that. I have the big.
All you need is a straight edge.
I know. But the shoe. Maybe I need to invest a little bit of time in like reconditioning the saw that I do have, because it's a 16. To be specific, it's 16 and 5/16. That's the diameter of the blade on these saws.
So you need a good straight edge, man, and that's it.
Yeah, but the shoe of the saw is like not very accurate. It's not meant for precision work. Like I couldn't do the work of a track saw with the beam saw. Like even with a straight edge, I've done it before to where I'll take the two slabs and I'll put them next to each other, like kind of wedge them up next to each other and lightly clamp them, and then make a kerf cut right down the middle that I'm taking like equal amounts off of both slabs, and then fit them together. But the saw is so freaking big and unwieldy. Like, if I take a step, if I have to shift my weight to like, walk the saw down a 10-foot cut, the cut is compromised a little bit. It's not as accurate as a track saw.
Maybe a better circular saw. I don't know. Maybe a little bit higher end circular saw.
I know. Yeah, but then the higher end, the highest end. Again, I like to think like a shaker. You always want to buy the best tools that money can buy because you're going to use them for the rest of your life.
Right.
I think it is the Mayfell has actually I have a friend, East Walker Riverwood. His name is Roger. Guy lives out in Utah. He's got that saw. I should actually just kind of pick his brain about which one's best. He's got basically the 16-inch version. It's a 16-inch track saw basically. It is huge. I think the one he has is like $6,000. It's a pretty significant investment. Yeah, but you see some of the stuff he does, it's freaking amazing, man. It's beautiful.
But for what you do, man, it's worth it. If you
yeah.
That's what we're talking about. If you're using it all the time, it's
that's on the radar. And Chris was just giving me crap about not getting a track saw and a domino like I said I would with this office job. He's like, PJ hasn't done it yet. He hasn't taken the plunge. I'm like, I think I'm going to take a more expensive plunge, dude, to be honest.
There you go.
Yeah, the domino is one that's on my list. I got to give back Dusko's and get my own.
I was just listening to our other podcast yesterday. Like, Arturo's here. Like, it's really hard to justify the purchase of a domino. Like, it's really easy to justify a free borrowed domino. Like, I justify that all day.
Yeah, stretching its legs, man.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
I'll get a domino because I guess I'm doing more work of it.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get one of those jobs and like just include it in it.
Sure.
$1 a day,
Yeah.
And that, but other than that, or another tool, not really.
So look, back to the topic. We'll move on after this, but like, so I already said my top 5 because I'm a certain type of woodworker, certain type of maker, I guess you could say. Arturo, what would your top 5 would be? Bits?
Bits will be my top. Will be like my top 3. CA glue.
Okay.
Tape, like a hold down method, because like we talked about the vacuum table and all that.
Sure. And a domino, I'd guess, right?
Right now would be a domino, just because I'm making a ton of tables. Like I'm just making tables all day.
Nice.
Tables and tables and tables and tables. Luckily, the dominoes haven't, they've lasted long enough, so I have plenty.
Yeah.
But yeah, the dominoes is one. Sanders.
Okay.
I have a ton of sanders. What else? Let's see. So it's bits, sanders, the domino, the CA glue, and double-sided tape. And one can I live without? Oh, the track saw.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go. So basically, if you were to watch, if you're a beginning woodworker, as we all were at one point, those top 5 tools that they said that every woodworker should own are basically sitting on the shelf.
So I sold my miter saw and got a cheaper one because I don't use it enough. I sold my Delta table saw and got a really old Ryobi, like from the 80s table saw.
And how often do you use that even?
When I ripped, like maybe when I did a cutting board a couple like weeks ago.
Okay.
I used the table saw. That's pretty much. Yeah,
so you could have used the track saw, and then that's on your top 5.
Right. Well, it was maple, so I don't like using the track saw on the maple because it's not as strong as the table saw.
Oh, okay. Yes, you'd have to go slower, and it would burn.
Yeah, so the track saw can't do that, but the table saw can't. So, but then you're talking about a tool that I spend I've sold it a couple $100, and then I bought a tool I got that table saw for $75.
Yeah.
So I already had a 10-inch blade just sitting there anyway. I slapped it on. And then the miter was, I think, $70 as well. And it's a 12-inch sliding one. Maybe it's not the most accurate, but it's a chop saw.
Yeah, but still, it's a chop saw. You're rough cutting stuff. Yeah.
Cutting it. I'm not doing fine stuff with it.
If you need to get an accurate 90, you put it on the CNC.
And call it a day.
And that's it. That's
really,
there's no question about that. Like, they make tools with CNCs. So, of course, it's going to be 90 degrees.
It's exactly the thing with the CNC is just it's 90 to itself, so it's awesome. So once you find the 90 for the machine, you just slap it on and go. It's awesome.
Yeah.
You don't even have to think twice if your blade is at the right angle, or is your fence on the right angle, is your table, if it's straight. No, it's straight to the bit to the table. That's it. There's nothing else to it.
Chris, fire off your top 5, man, that you don't use anymore.
Oh, man. Actually, I'm going to split this into sort of 2 directions, right? So I'm going to say like what I used primarily when I first got started, and then what I use now. So, when I first got started, it was circular saw, drill and driver, sander, and actually I had a miter saw then. So then I was using a miter saw, Then I actually broke that miter saw. I had a piece kick back. It was actually a 4x4 that kicked back into it, and it torqued the mechanism so it could no longer cut a straight 90.
What brand was it?
Ryobi. Yeah.
Ryobi. Yeah, it's a little.
Yeah.
I think it's a little underpowered.
I mean, it was fine. I was being an idiot, and then, it happened and whatever. So now, though, what I would say my top 5 tools are, table saw is like for sure number 1.
Yeah.
I think a very underrated tool that I think a lot of beginners should probably get, though, is a router. I think they need to learn how to use a router too. There's that learning curve.
Dangerous.
Yeah, but even a trim router, man, like a trim router,
is works wonders. A little
something
trim
you could hold with one hand. Yeah.
Like routers are really, really cool. But I mean, I use my plunge router, constantly. So what do I have? Table saw, plunge router, hand tools. I mean, I can break this up into 3, and that'll probably get me to where I need to go here. But like a number 4 hand plane. I mean, granted, I've been using my smoothing plane the most lately, but like a number 4, I think, is a great jack of all trades kind of plane.
Jack.
Chisels. I use chisels on literally every single project that I do in some way, shape, or form. Cleaning up, shoulders, dados, whatever. And honestly, like JT is going to probably, give me a high five the next time he sees me, but card scraper. Like once I learned how to use a card scraper, that was, I mean, a game changer as far as sanding and finishing and all that. Like I barely, like it's pretty rare for me to like do a ton of power sanding anymore. You know, I'll do some light sanding and then I card scrape. And I mean, the finish that I get on it with a card scraper is, I think, better than I could do if I was using 400 grit sandpaper.
Absolutely,
So,
dude. Yeah. Like a shear, it's almost like putting something through like the helical planer. A planed finish versus a scratched finish all day.
Yeah, I mean, it's phenomenal. Well, I mean, you actually came over and you touched my stool.
I sure did. Yep.
You know, and actually, I think you remember too, like when I first got the card scrape and I was just trying to figure out how to use it. And I like had a piece of scrap, right, that was like laying around. I think you came over and I showed you, I was like, this is the side that was, you know, sanded. This is the side that's card scraped. Like, tell me what you think.
Yeah,
and
night and day.
Yeah, you were like, dude, like that's, you know, smoother than 220.
To go to PJ's house to check out that card scraper.
Yeah.
I just
I've never used one before.
Yeah. I'm gonna get the or make a quick little jig to put it on the diamond stone or whatever it is, you know, sharpening stone. So I can get a good little burr going. And then I bought the burnisher to actually do, you know, to roll that burr over, see if I can get some good little shavings.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, I've got a system down, but I just used Matt Cremona's system for, you know, card scraping, like, sorry, for burnishing, you know. And I mean, I do it all the time. Like, it's one of my favorite things to do. Actually, I have blisters on my thumbs from from the heat that gets generated.
Dude, it gets hot fast. It's like, I'm like, am I doing this right? Like, this thing is getting really hot. I got to put it down for a second.
Yeah.
When you're sanding, the wood gets hot. Imagine, like, you're scraping, you know, the top of it, and you're just pushing and pushing.
Yeah, it's generating that friction.
You can kind of feel like how it works its way up.
The only downside that I would say with the card scraper, and I dealt with this a little bit with the stool, is that if you have, let's say, mixed grain. So I had a joint, you know, those box joints, or the finger joint rather, where I've got face grain and then I've got end grain coming through. So I've got end grain coming through from the ash, that's the leg support, and then I've got the face grain. So you can scrape any surface, like in any direction. Like, it doesn't really matter that much. But in a situation like that, where you're coming over the face grain and then you hit that end grain,
you blow it out,
on the back end of that end grain, you'll get some chip out. So, you know, you do have to be a little conscious of that. But I mean,
with that, you come same concept as when I came over. You're cutting the splines in that giveaway box. Like, you just got to come from the outside.
Yeah, or from the side. Like, if you come literally
a little bit
across the grain, like, you know, that works too. You know, you're not gonna, if you're card scraping properly, like, you can card scrape, you know, from any direction. So I mean, that's how I solved that problem. But yeah, I love my card scraper, man. I am super obsessed. So, you know, shout out
DFM Toolworks. Good job, man. So I do have to figure out, does Matt have a method for putting a burr on the curved card scrapers? Because I got the whole set.
I have not seen it. It's funny. I have a curved card scraper, not from JT, but from Bearcat.
Well, throw it away, man. Bearcat's pretty good too, actually.
Yeah, and it's sitting up there, like, in a, you know, in an envelope on like a shelf somewhere. But,
man, okay. I actually used the curved one the day I got it, because I had a little cutting board I'm gonna try and put up for sale that's got some funky feature in the front of it, and like, I didn't want to keep, I don't know, like, again, sanding, it always, no matter what you do, you get all the way up to 220, 320 even, like, it just doesn't look the same as a sheared, like a sliced.
Yeah, you have to get up to like 1,000, 2,000 to get the same look.
Yeah. So I'm like, there's this little funky thing, and I don't want to like stick my finger in there with the sandpaper wrapped around it. I just like literally 3 passes with the card scraper, and it was done.
Yeah, there is a method, and actually, I can't remember the guy's name from Bearcat, but it's like written on the envelope, like, as to how to do it. And I wanted to say it involved like a fish hook, like, file or something like that, like what they used to like sharpen fish hooks, something like that, to like kind of get in there on the curve. And then you would just use your regular burnisher to turn that burr over. But it's one of those. So I'm curious. I do want to get that. Eventually, I'm going to do like a kind of like a pub chair, sort of like a high chair. So I'm going to have like a carved out seat, so I'll be able to, you know, mess with that and try to figure out how to, best to get the card scraper to fit in those curved spaces, and so I'll have to burnish it.
Attaboy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I guess I can shift to my topic really quick, which is
go for it, man.
Shoot it.
Negotiating contrasting styles with clients and negotiating contrasting styles with your wife or girlfriend at home.
My wife is home.
AKA the client. Yes.
Yeah. So I'll frame this in a couple different ways because, we were talking, I think early on in like our first or second episode about how we all have different styles, right? Like, I think, it's pretty obvious that PJ's the more rustic and, big, large, beefy as far as like his furniture builds and his body is concerned. And, I'm definitely more on the, modern / mid-century modern look. And then I think Arturo's, I don't know what Arturo is, CNC guy, but I'm sure that there's, Arturo, if you spent long enough to think about it, you could probably identify like what your, comfortable sort of style is, or maybe you adapt to everything. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, adapt to everything. I haven't figured it out. I'm trying to.
Yeah. Well, put it in this perspective. What do you prefer to do? Right. Like, I think that's maybe a better way of sort of identifying it.
And I'm in a part of evolution right now that I want to start doing like furnitures.
Like an evolution of tables, kind of?
Kind of. That's what I'm doing, a ton of tables. So furniture. I'm starting to like it a lot.
So I will say that like when I get a client where, they're a little open to, or even if they're not that open to it, but like at least they want to work with me. So like, they might not have the same exact style as me, but they're like, listen, I want to work with you. A lot of times I'll try to take their vision and sort of meld it with what I like or what I'm comfortable doing. Right.
Right.
And
a little bit.
Yeah. And it's funny because when you really think about like retail sales and all that, there's always been that adage, the customer's always right, and that's always been a thing. And for me, it's funny because a lot of times I think in furniture, especially when you are a designer, you have a vision that you don't always believe that, a lot of times I'm like, nah, like that, no, like that looks terrible. Like you don't want to do that. So I'm curious as to how you guys, handle like negotiating with clients to get them to sort of meld more towards your style. And an example that I can use from my experience, and I'll use probably the most recent one, is with this office warehouse job that we're doing, because initially they were trying to use, well, granted, it was also way out of their price range, so we won't get too into that, but they wanted, fallen timbers, and they wanted, this like sort of meld between like rustic and modern, and it was sort of all over the place. And I was going to approach them. I was like, how about we do this all out of plywood? Like literally the entire job. Like we'll do everything out of plywood. And I was like, that's going to get you that more modern sort of Google office look, that is sort of fitting with what you guys are trying to do here with having a more modern workspace. And that was something they were super into and still are, so I'm curious, what you guys' experience is with trying to talk your customers or your client base into working within the confines of your style.
I think that it comes down to being able to read people. And, if you can meet them somewhere, if you can meet them at their house, even though, like if you're just some random woodworker that they met on the internet, like they might be reluctant to invite you to their home. But if they're serious about having you work for them, then they'll invite you over. I always say, like, let me come see the space. Like, let's meet. And so I can kind of feel them out. That's kind of I don't want to say a talent of mine, but like I'm pretty good at reading people and maybe like saying things that they would be interested in. Right. I've got my style. If I can show you some pictures of stuff that I've done and you're digging it, great. Like I'll show, as soon as I hand my phone to somebody with like, my Instagram, for example, I'll hand my phone to a client and I won't look at the phone to see what they're looking at, which could be dangerous, but I'll look at their face. And if they're not like impressed or interested, or they're not saying, "Oh man, I really like this one," I'll be like, "Okay, well they don't really like my style, so let me try and figure out where their style, what direction they're trying to go in." Like then I'm like, "Do you have any pictures of something that you've seen on the internet? Like where are we where are we going here? Because people, just like when Chris asked Arturo before, like, hey, Arturo, what's your style? We didn't really get a specific answer, you know, and that's 99% of the time, that's what you get from a client. So you have to figure it out. And that usually the beauty of the internet is like, all right, let's look some things up. Let's look up console tables. What do you want? Something that looks like it came out of a forest in Colorado? Do you want something that looks like a slab of granite with steel legs? Like, what direction are you trying to go in? And then you kind of meet, you agree upon something. And if it's something that I just, not that I'm not capable of it, but if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. You know when to say no. If your client is somebody who wants, you know, something more modern, I would probably toss them over to Chris. You know, because I don't, not that I don't want to do that, but I guess I don't want to do that. I don't like that whole mid-century modern stuff because it's not even going to fit in my portfolio. You know, it's not what I'm good at. It's not what fits me. It's the art of it. I have my own set of things that I consider art, and I want to stay true to that. So
that makes sense.
Whatever.
You
know, I spoke with an artist that actually came over. Manny from Wood Designs. He came over to buy some slabs from me, and we were talking about that specifically. Like, he's been asked to do things because he's more of the like eclectic artist type of guy, and he does a lot of work and installations with artists themselves. So some of the stuff he does is kind of crazy. And he had a client ask him, want to take a piece of driftwood that he actually dug out of the sand himself, and he brought it home, whatever. The client wanted it to be painted white, and he said, no, like, I'm not doing that. Sorry. I don't know how much they were going to pay or how much extra they were going to pay to have it painted white or whatever. He's like, but listen, out of respect for what I do and my style, and out of respect for this piece of wood that's probably been floating around in the Caribbean for however long, like, I can't just paint it white. It's going to take all the character away from it. You know, I won't do it. And he refused to do it because he's more of an artist. He was staying true to his art.
What you're telling me is if you had a bunch of leftover Dade County pine, you wouldn't paint it gray?
No, I
Shots fired. We gotta leave David alone. We just got him to come over your house. And all that. Look what you're doing. Man.
I actually gave him some teak offcuts. So I resawed some teak, so about 1/8 inch, like maybe even less than 1/8 inch thick.
Probably, yeah.
Teak. I'm like, we could veneer this on a piece of plywood, make a sign out of it. Just don't paint it gray.
Don't paint it gray, right?
Oh man,
that's good. Fun.
So, what about you, Arturo? What's like your deal with working with clients in that way?
So, when it comes to clients, I like to get a feel for, like, you know, like what PJ said, get a feel for them, sit down with them. I love to sit down when I'm doing an order like that. If it's not like a sign or something simple, I can just send a render of. If it's something complicated, I like to sit down and get a feel. You know, see where their head's at. You know, if it's something realistic, if it's just something out of this world, or it doesn't even fit in their budget, you know, but sitting down with them and discussing and show them a few pictures and how you can merge it. And since I'm in that transition phase a little bit, trying to figure out what I really want to stick to and do, like as my main thing, it becomes a little difficult sometimes just for the fact that my head is in one place and they're in another, and I'm just trying to piece it all together. But when it comes to, like, I don't know, furniture pieces, I've been saying yes to everything just because I want to dabble a little bit on everything, have a taste of every type of, you know, feel for. So let's say we did in those a little bit fine. I don't want to say fine woodworking, but a little bit more finer woodworking that I normally do, which is that walnut set. And then to these outdoor tables for that tap room. So with right now where I'm at, it's just, you know, doing a little bit of everything. And I'll do veneering, I'll do, you know, whatever. It's just to get a feel for everything. You know, see what I really want to do and stick to it.
You're still figuring yourself out, you know?
Yeah, because, you know, I'm fine with the CNC, but I'm trying to figure out, like, how could I merge what I'm good at, like the CNC and all that, with what I want to do. So if I want to do furniture, how could I build furniture on the CNC? But then if I want to build fine furniture, how could I build fine furniture on the CNC?
Yeah, a lot of times when I'm like taking on a job, I try to think about like, how is this going to make me a better woodworker?
Right.
Like that's like almost like one of my prerequisites for taking on something, because, again, like this isn't my day job at the end of the day. Like, I have a day job. So like, my paychecks are coming. I mean, granted, it is paying me money, but it's not, my primary source of income.
Right.
So I have that option of being like, listen, like if I don't think this is going to be intellectually stimulating, or this is going to lead me to learning a better technique of doing something or whatever, then I'm just like, all right, like, no, I'm good.
Like, sorry. Yeah. And you'll live a much happier life doing that, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, like everything I take at this point right now is like, with a vision in mind that like, all right, I'm going to develop a new skill out of this, or I'm going to, learn this particular joint, or learn how to install this particular hardware or something,
Mm-hmm.
and that has been like one of the most like valuable things, like, with like taking on these new clients. But anyway, so what about at home? Like, do you guys have contrasting styles with your wife or significant other?
No, I've never built anything for a house.
Wow.
Yeah, because I'm so picky.
Yeah.
And I can never like settle on a design or something. And I've never built. I think there's only the dining table that's sitting in here, and there's nothing else. Which is not even a dining table. We're not even using it as a dining table.
It's a work table.
Yeah, it literally, it's like a catch-all table.
Huh.
Yeah, I had never built anything.
That's crazy. I don't know. Like if I were to, I don't think I've ever asked my wife to, hey, well, actually, no, that's not true. She'll send me stuff on Pinterest, but I think that, or not even Pinterest, she'll take a screenshot of something on Pinterest and send it to me as a text, like, hey, what do you think about this? But I think, bless her heart for doing this. Like, she probably takes my skill set into account when she sends me a screenshot of something. She's like, oh, this probably looks like something PJ would make. So, and I kind of like it too. So like, hey, let me send it to him and see what he thinks about it. And I always respond like, oh man, that's freaking awesome. Like, where do you want that? Like, that's really cool. I can definitely do that. So I'm sure she just knowing her and how she overthinks everything, just like me. She probably is there thinking like, oh, well, I don't want to send him something that's too hard to do, because then he's going to feel like he has to do it and learn this and learn that or whatever.
Go buy a new tool.
Yeah, exactly. But she does that.
One of my favorite stories from your household, though, is when I gave you that. Did I give you one or two? I can't remember. Walnut cutting boards.
Yes.
One.
Yeah. Oh man, no one. Yeah, one.
Yeah,
man.
So that story, and you'll have to tell that one, but like that's like one of my faves. Like
I do like a yearly. I didn't do it this year, but like Father's Day and Christmas, I'll make a bunch of pretty thick live edge chopping blocks, and try and sell them. Like people, hey, get your dad a real like thick manly cutting board. Here we go. Father's Day sale coming up, and do pretty well, but there's always a couple left over. So we've got these big cutting boards, got real big, thick cutting boards in the kitchen, and they're freaking 20 pounds and this and that.
3 inches, 3 C's.
Yeah, 3 C's, 3 C's thick. And hey, shit, they'll last forever. All I got to do is plane it down, and you got a fresh surface. You could do that about 1,000 times. But so Chris comes over as a little gift, like, hey, PJ, whatever, help me out with something. I figured, I made an extra one of these. Here you go. Here's a cool little cutting board with my logo on it. It's got the little rubber feet. Good to go. And that still to this day is the cutting board that Virginia uses, because like almost like Chris compared to PJ, his is, what is it, 3/4 of an inch thick?
Yeah, something like that.
And it's like his style is a more practical style in that sense. Like in the kitchen, if you're going to use something daily for a cutting board, you don't want it to be 30 pounds.
No.
So I give her shit all the time. Like, oh, you like Chris's cutting board better than mine. She's like, well, it's easy to put away. It's like, it's easy to clean. It's easy to put away. But every time she tells the story, my cutting board gets heavier. Like it started out like Peach's cutting board's like 20 pounds. And now like it's almost a year later, like Peach's cutting board's like 100 pounds, like, but hey, whatever.
I want to see.
Still going strong, man. Still going strong.
Yeah, I'll say with my girlfriend, it's funny because so you know, like I dabble in a little bit of mid-century, but also some standard modern stuff. But I don't use a lot of the like mixed mediums that some modern stuff has. So I haven't really messed around with acrylic. I don't do pretty much anything with glass yet. And I try to keep metal to, you know, or steel, whatever metal, I guess. Aluminum is also an option too. To a minimum. I mean, I'd say like this nightstand that I just did is probably the most steel I've used on a project so far. And she is like all into like the uber modern stuff. Like, you know, if you went to a house in LA that was basically a giant box and, you know, walked in and everything was white inside, like it would be filled with all furniture from her brain. So, you know, a lot of times she'll like show me stuff and I'm like, like I'm not into like this thing that you're showing me. And so we like constantly are going back and forth. And like, it was really funny. I'm talking about doing a light fixture as like a, you know, a project. And she's like, can we try to figure out a way to make this light fixture, you know, with not that much wood? Cause I'm so tired of seeing all this like wood everywhere. And I'm like,
my heart. Oh my God.
But you know, like part of me too is like, yeah, like I think I could actually do that because, you know, like I do want to get into steel and I do want to get into welding a little more, you know, that sort of thing. And like, you know, this is an opportunity for me to do that. So, and Arturo's wandering around his house showing us cutting boards right now.
Oh, that's it. Is that something you made, Arturo?
I made this.
We can't hear you at all. You got to put your, you got to go back upstairs and put your headset on, man.
Now?
No.
Yeah, how about now?
Can you hear him, Chris?
I can hear him, but he's like shitty.
Oh,
because I'm on the phone.
Well, that's no different.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck with you, man. So that's a nice cutting board, man. I wish I could hear you though.
Oh, this is one I made, and then hold on. And then
I've got a feeling we might have to like, you know, put some smooth jazz over this whole bit right here.
No, why?
Oh, Sosa family. Okay, you did a nice.
Is that a laser engraving?
That's cool.
Like
that's very cool. Oh, double-sided too.
Yeah.
He spelled Sosa wrong on one side. Flip it over. Oh man. That's awesome. So, oh, now I hear you, man.
Screaming in the house.
So let's in the interest of time, we're already an hour and 15 deep into this thing. Let's go on to
Arturo. Yeah, let's
Arturo's topics.
Those were I made that cutting board and she goes, "Oh, this is nice," and took it. I made it like 2 years ago. And
okay, well then there you go.
I never put one for sale because
she likes your stuff.
You know, so and then the other ones are epoxied, and then the other one has a walnut inlay in it. That's my first inlay piece. But yeah, so my topic was veneering.
Oh, okay, good.
The reason why I picked veneering is because it makes into my fine woodworking, trying to dabble in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing some cool designs in veneering.
Yeah.
Like these people that make some crazy patterns.
Like marquetry, I guess you would call it. Marquetry or parquetry. Parquetry, yes.
And it's awesome. And you know, and I'm looking at it, yeah, it's veneer and stuff like that. But my question becomes when to veneer and when not to veneer.
Mm.
You know, and it ties back to like, let's say what you guys are doing, the beams, that plywood stuff, remember, and then you go to veneer it.
Yeah.
Like when to do that or when to actually use, let's say, maple.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you from our perspective, I mean, we did it out of necessity, to be honest. I mean, that was not the original plan. I mean, at all. So there's that. Yeah.
Like cost obviously is a huge factor. And practicality of it, like it's very difficult to get a 16-foot long piece of anything. So we need it to be 15 inches square to get something that's that long would be. I even priced it like from a 6 feet long, 15, you know, for like $6,000.
Oh, PJ.
Yeah. You can't hear me?
No, you're breaking up.
Man.
Oh, he's super broken up right now.
Yeah, he's super broken up.
So you break me?
Yeah, still.
Yeah, you're broken up. Tell the kids get off Disney.
No, they're.
No. Oh, Peach. He's there. Like, you see his mouth.
Oh my God. You have to mark the time so that way you know what to edit out.
Yeah. I can find it. What are we in? Okay. Yeah, like a minute 20. An hour and 19. Oh, he's gone completely?
I mean, he's just frozen right there.
I know. Let me see if I can set him on. Oh, no, Peach. This is what you Davy people. Very heavy tables at Gmail. All right, until he comes back, because all we see is a smiling face, which is hilarious. On the bottom. But yeah, man. So I'm in that point, like, dang, I want to do the fine furniture a little bit. How about the veneers?
It just depends, because veneering is a lot of work, right? And if you're going to do it, do you vacuum bag at all? Or
I have, by me, where I get my veneers from, they have a vacuum press.
Okay, so they'll put it on for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And whatever backing I want.
I mean, it's tricky, man. And I will say that I think you can mix in, like, let's say you're using veneered walnut, right? Or on plywood, and then edge banding with hardwood to give you, more of a like natural look. I mean, I think we're going to have to do that on some future jobs coming up. But in all honesty, I mean,
hardwood edge banding.
I prefer to do, and I mean, you need to obviously be paid for, what you're using, but I prefer to do pure hardwood, as opposed to using plywood. I prefer to use, do the glue up, do the whole nine, make my own panels.
Of course. Yeah, that's that goes back to, besides like the budget, because sometimes veneering takes more work, which equals more money at the end. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a ton of work.
It was like, damn, you know what? It was a lot easier just to go buy a 16-foot piece of maple.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and then sitting there veneering, cutting, and all that, and that's
and worrying about like seams, things like that. I mean, that's kind of one of the things we're dealing with on that that desk that we built, is that there's like one seam that we had to use a decent amount of wood filler on, and it's clear as day. So like now we have to figure out how to cover it up. So it does become a little bit of a hassle, and I mean, I'm not a huge fan of it, but it does have a place. Like I said, we did it out of complete necessity. Initially we were thinking about mitering the corners on plywood in order to have like a perfect box, but we were also like, man, like the accuracy that's going to take at that scale,
that length,
it's 16 feet, like it would be a nightmare. So PJ talked me out of that one pretty quick. And then we just did a simple box, really, all butt joints, and then figured like we just cover it up using a veneer. So that's where that sort of evolved from. But I mean, if I can avoid it at all costs, like I would avoid veneering, to be quite honest. So
gotcha. No, when I meant veneering though, it's like the higher end stuff, like those designs. And
I actually know. I went to this guy's shop, Sempre Avanti Woodworks. This is like a while ago, and this guy does a lot of like high end cabinetry and like build outs and like high rises and that sort of thing.
Right.
And that was actually when I was just getting started. One of the things he asked me, he's like, he was actually trying to outsource his veneering, because like they do it all, like not all of it, but I do most of it in house. Using the adhesive and the rollers and, that sort of thing. He's like, oh yeah, man. Like, is this something you want to do? Like, I could, get through some work. And I was like, nah, dude, like I'm not into that. But with that being said, like the stuff that they do is awesome. Like there's some really, really cool veneers out there, but I don't know, man, like just from a tactile perspective, that's actually really what bothers me a lot of times. Cause like, when you touch it, it's not wood, you can see on the corners that it's not like, actual like continuous hardwood, and they're veneering MDF primarily for a lot of those cabinets. Like if you, and too, I'm sure, because you've worked with cabinet guys, like when there's a lot of high-end cabinetry out there, like they're usually veneering it. Like that's
100%. They paint or they veneer it, because that's what it is. Like the guys by me, they either paint or veneer. That's all it does. Paint or veneer. I mean, and it's high end. Like the stuff is insane. But it's not like, the veneering is not so high end per se, like as the design wise. It's just he's really good at at it, because that's all he does.
Yeah, from a more like DIY perspective, that guy Glenn from DIY Creators, he does a lot of. I don't know if it's exactly veneering, but I know that he uses a lot of those like vinyl. I guess they're vinyl veneers or whatever. Like,
Right.
he just does straight up over, plywood or MDF or whatever. And I mean, it looks cool. Like it's not my style, but like sometimes it'll look like he's got like a marble, floating desk or something like that with like LED lights. And I'm like, oh shit, like that looks awesome. But I mean, it's, it's different. Another funny thing, speaking of veneers, and I don't know if you would actually call this a veneer or whatever, but a buddy of mine sent me a link for a company that is doing, like how they have like pipe fitting legs and all that, like instead of using pipe fittings, but electrical conduit. So using like it's got like a cutter, and then there's like all these different joints and stuff that you can use to create like different configurations for conduit legs, basically, or conduit bases. And they have this sleeve, it's a shrink wrap. So you literally like pull the sleeve like over the conduit, use a heat gun, and then it just like shrinks like right onto it.
Like a vinyl, right?
Yeah. And it's colored, and it's kind of cool actually. I was sort of tripping out. I was like, oh man, like that looks awesome. Like, cause you can get it in black so that it looks almost like black iron pipe, or you can get like all these badass colors, like, yellows and blues, whatever you want. Yeah.
Oh, you gotta send me that. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I actually thought like it would be a kind of a funny idea, if I don't know where we would find this, but if they made like shrink wrap like that on a bigger scale, like we could do it with, those like square tube legs that PJ does, or, like whatever, like as far as like a larger scale to, take out the painting aspect,
right.
like, rather than spraying stuff down, doing that, like literally like shrink wrapping it like with vinyl.
We can ask, because by my shop, which is close to you guys anyway, is Metro Wraps.
Oh yeah.
And I know they're into all that crazy stuff.
Yeah.
At least they used to be. But see, look, this is like the type of the veneer, what I was saying. Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's some funky, funky veneering, like where they're really taking advantage of like grain direction and all that.
Right. I mean, it costs you an arm and a leg.
Yeah, that's a ton of work. That's an insane amount of work.
No, but it's beautiful though,
Yeah.
It's just beautiful, and it's like something I'm looking into. Like I like that because it mixes all into like the fine woodworking.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, fine woodworking is like that. It's with veneers and where to place them, how to place them.
Yeah, there's a good Instagram account, Waters in Ackland, and they're a furniture school that's out of England. And somebody did something not like as centered as far as like grain direction, but they were orienting grain direction, so everything was sort of flowing towards one corner rather than the middle. Okay. And using different pieces to create sort of a similar effect. And they didn't do it with veneers, or they might have actually. A lot of times I've seen what people will do is they'll like not necessarily make their own veneer per se, but like get they'll resaw some like 1/4-inch boards or something like that. PJ has actually done something similar where he's done those round tables for the boathouse out of the sunken cypress, and he basically created his own like veneer strip, so to speak, over a plywood core or something like that.
Yeah, that's
in a circle. Yeah, so. I mean, I'm not opposed to hardwood veneers that are a little more substantial than than your standard, like what we consider a proper veneer. But
right. I mean, you could find, like at least where I get my veneer from, you ask them, they go, well, they ask you, they go, what do you want? You want the real stuff or you want the man-made stuff?
Yeah, actually, and the stuff that we used on those beams was actual maple. I mean, that was, real wood. I mean, just super duper thin, like a 32nd of an inch or whatever it is, whatever super tiny measurement that is.
LE Palmley that I'm looking at that looks incredible.
Yeah. And actually, in a funny way, like I did a round table. When was it? I mean, it's been a couple months by now, but I did that pallet wood round. And really, the pallet wood was the veneer. I mean, at the end of the day, like it was a giant plywood circle, and I used the pallet wood all that I had planed and cleaned up all on the surface, flush trimmed it, and then edge banded it with oak, like actual like hard oak, so like white oak. So I mean, I guess it depends on your definition of like veneering, but I'm a little bit more opposed to the actual store brand bought veneer, but I'm not necessarily opposed to like resawing your own.
Yeah,
I like something that's thick enough that you're not going to sand through it.
Yes.
right.
You know, like a 1/4 inch, like something 1/4 inch or 3/8, something like that. Something like, all right, for example, the tables that I did at Boathouse, those were. Did you guys already talk about that?
Yeah.
Sorry, I've been out. I had to turn on a hotspot on my phone, so I'm back. I don't know what the hell happened with the internet for the house though. Like it's everything's blinking, but then I said screw it. I got stuff to do. Turn on the hotspot, and here I am. So yes, the veneer for the tables, that was about between 1/4 and 3/8 of an inch. The big square table I did was the same thing, ash. But it was like a 5-foot square table. That's a lot of ash to glue up. A 5-foot wide, 5-foot long table. I did a 1/4 inch veneer. It's way cheaper. It's much more stable. And, you know, I mean, when I first started out, I swore against it. But all the conveniences and all the practicality of veneering have become evident, especially in South Florida with wood movement and stuff. I'm sure you guys already talked about that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Veneering, check mark. Yes.
Let me show you what I showed, because when I talk about a little bit of like fine woodworking veneering, it's like this.
That's the parquetry that I was talking about. Like that's a bunch of triangles,
right?
Pie-shaped things meeting in the center, which is amazing.
I think it's so cool, man.
But
you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And when it's finished,
Matt Cremona just did a veneering like thing. He had a guy come over to his shop to talk about veneering. It was like it's a YouTube video.
I gotta check that out.
Yeah, and actually he did for that wall cabinet for the hand tools. That is that's a veneer
a veneer slab. Yeah.
Yeah. With the epoxy, which is super weird, but you know,
a little weird.
Yeah. It looks cool though. I mean,
it's different. It's different. Yeah. Very, very cool and effective. And it's not gonna, you know, it's a big. Usually, you know, you'll never see me cutting a slab that's only 1/2 inch thick, unless I'm just trying to screw it around. Actually, Chris, that piece of maple you bought from me a while ago, the first slab you bought was about 1/2 inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch thick. But that was just an experiment. I was like, oh, how thin can I go on this sawmill?
Yeah. Well, don't worry, I still have more of it. So.
I know. Yeah, I have another piece of it too. But those are not stable at all. If you're going to cut them into small pieces, like you did, like make some bookends, make a clock, whatever, then it's fine. But if you're trying to leave it as a cabinet door, like Matt did, you got to back it up with some plywood. Because he's got the whole setup too with the vacuum bag and whatever. You put it on a sheet of plywood, and then it becomes another veneer on the veneers of the plywood. So it's pretty stable. But that's the end of my story.
All right. So, boys, we ready to close this out or what?
Yeah.
I think so, fellas and ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank everybody for listening. Sorry I cut out for a couple minutes. My internet was taking a dump on me. But as always, we appreciate you being here. Appreciate the support. Be sure to follow all of us on the social medias. We've got the Chop Master, Arturo. We've got Cowdog Craftworks, Chris, and myself with the Evolution of Tables, PJ Fetscher. We thank you all for listening and following along as we progressively get worse at this every week. Be sure to ask me about my wood at gmail.com for any inquiries or topics that you'd like to talk about, or send us a DM on the social medias. Be sure to rate us on YouTube or whatever your podcast platform of choice is. And hopefully next week we can talk about lumber selection again with Arturo. That would be something. All right, guys. I appreciate your time. We'll talk to you next week.
All right. Later, guys.